What's up everyone, James from Doc Dean's Pools here, and I figured with it rolling into summer, it's a good time to talk about salt systems. So today we're going to talk about what exactly it is they do, some things to know before buying one, and my recommended brands. So there are 4 major benefits to having a salt system. Number 1, and this kind of ties into number 2, they produce their own chlorine. Having a constant drip of chlorine is going to limit the peaks and valleys of traditional chlorination methods where you're going to be putting in a jug. You're going to have to stay out for some period of time, maybe an hour, maybe 4, maybe you even have to stay out for 24 hours depending on how much liquid you use. With the salt system, you're going to stop experiencing that. Along with this comes a decrease in your chlorine costs to next to nothing actually. Because you're producing your own chlorine, it means that you don't have to keep going to the pool store to pick up liquid or tabs or any other kind of shock that you may have been using. The salt system can take care of almost all of it, except in some extreme circumstances where you need to handle like a boatload of algae or if you get phosphate or something into your system. Another major benefit of salt systems is actually the water quality itself. This is a little bit less of an objective measurement that we can make. The main thing to take away from this is that salt water is much softer and kinder to your skin. Most people note that as opposed to a traditional pool where you may get out and you need to shower and your skin feels quite dry and itchy, people that have salt water chlorinators typically don't experience that kind of feeling anymore. In fact, they remark at how silky smooth it leaves their skin feeling. The salt level's nowhere near that of the ocean. We're only working with about 3,000 to 4,500 parts per million of salt. So you're never gonna have a concern of, oh, I can taste the salt in this water. And then one of the last major benefits is the fact that having a salt generator is actually far more ecologically friendly than traditional chlorination methods. When you're running a regular pool with traditional chlorine like most pools are, you have to factor in all the trips to the pool store. You have to factor in how corrosive chlorine actually is. If you looked at the back of any pool truck, you'll see that almost all of them have rotted away if they've been at it for any period of time. Chlorine tabs may even come in individually wrapped bags, further adding to the amount of waste that goes into you trying to use your swimming pool and just keep it clean. With a salt generator, you put the salt in, there's a few plastic bags that need to get put to waste, and then after that you really shouldn't be adding salt too frequently to your swimming pool. Number 1 that people always seem to forget about is that you still need to test your water chemistry. They only affect chlorine, and in fact salt generators produce a much higher pH in the water than you may be used to. The increased pH is a byproduct of your salt system making the chlorine, so you still need to be testing the water because managing the pH is also important, just as managing the chlorine level of your swimming pool is important. If you have any questions on what pH does for your swimming pool, we actually have a guide to understanding pH in swimming pools, which if you click in the top right hand corner, you'll be able to watch that video there, or you can go to the Doc Dean's Pools website and we have a blog all about how to manage your pH. Now, if you want a really hands-off approach and your goal with salt chlorination is to get away from adding chemical weekly as frequently as possible, then the recommendation that I have for you is to go with what's called a scent and dispense system. They work really great in conjunction with salt chlorinators. It's a probe that goes into the water that will actually take measures of the pH frequently, and then through a vat of diluted acid, it will put that into the water to try and maintain your pH level on as flat a line as possible. Because remember, one of the benefits of getting a salt chlorinator that's going to flatline your chlorine, the pH is still going to go up, and then when you add acid, that pH is going to come down. A sense and dispense system seeks to flatten that pH line as well. They are definitely a luxury and you do not need it, but for the person that wants to get as far away from having to deal with their pool's chemistry, this really does a lot of the work for you. I'd still recommend testing your water chemistry to make sure that the system is working as intended, but it takes a lot of the guesswork out of having to add the chemistry into your pool. All right, so my recommended salt systems. Let me start off by saying, if you have an automation system, I'm gonna recommend you go with a salt system that matches the automation system. If you have a Hayward OmniLogic automation system, I'm gonna recommend that you go with a Hayward salt system. If you have a Jandy iAqualink system, I'm gonna recommend you go with a Jandy salt system. If you want the ultimate control, which if you have an automation system, I'm gonna guess that you want that ultimate control, you want to match the salt system with your automation. But if you don't have automation, my number one choice is definitely the Jandy TruClear salt system. Some people don't like them because the interface is really bare bones. All you can really do on it is adjust the output up or down. But to be honest, that's all you really need. If we're gonna test salt, I always recommend testing salt with a salt test strip or an electronic salt tester. They are, in my experience, far more reliable than the ones on cells because the cells can get caked up with calcium on them, which is another thing that's a benefit to this system. Pulling out the cell from the pipe to clean it is so easy. I just had to do it last week. I pulled it out. I didn't even need acid to clean it off. I just had to have the hose, fire it down. It blew off the calcium, dropped it back in, and the thing's working great again. They really are a fantastic little system. And in terms of value for money, it is the biggest bang for your buck that I can consistently find. I know that we are able to offer them as our lowest cost salt system, and another major benefit to them is that you can run them beyond 4,500 parts per million of salt. Talking to a Jandy rep, he said I could even run these up to 6,000 parts per million. We don't ever want to go beyond 6,000 because that's the point where salt becomes corrosive, but it can run at very high salt levels, which means that to produce a certain output, the salt cell needs less voltage, so it's less taxing on the cell to actually produce the chlorine. And if you have a legacy automation system, which is something kind of old, I would still even recommend this system if you didn't want that automated control over it, because they are just so easy to use and so intuitive. There's very little that you can push to make it go wrong. And then my recommendation for a combo salt system sense and dispense is the Haywood Aquarite system. It's got a really great simple setup wizard to get everything going, and in my experience the Haywood customer support over the phone is fantastic. Whenever I've had an issue at one of these systems, whether I needed to clean one of the sensors or if I needed to change something to do with the parameters for the pH, they were really helpful and it was really easy to get going with this thing. If you try and manage it yourself, it can feel kind of clunky at times, but that's just what happens when you start adding more accessories than just a salt system. So to wrap up, I really like salt generators and I really like salt pools. They are not some magic bullet that's just gonna get rid of all your swimming pool's problems. You've still got to clean the filter, remove debris, clean the baskets, make sure that your pump is running for the correct amount of time. This is just another way of chlorinating the swimming pool, and it's one that takes a lot of the guesswork and the handling of chemicals out of your hands. So if you like this video, be sure to subscribe for more and hit that thumbs up button if you do feel so inclined. If you have any questions, you can leave that in a comment below. You can hit us on Instagram, Facebook, or contact our office. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.